Well, hello everyone. Good morning and welcome to the latest in our Future Makers webinar series. Today, the topics that we'll be digging into are going to be digital confidence and regional connection. So I think two very important aspects of the process of starting, operating, owning your own small business. And I think here, obviously, one of the key areas of focus that we will have in the months ahead will be the regional dimension, because this is very important. We're seeing that it's a huge contribution in terms of the opportunities for women who are starting their own small business. We're seeing huge success stories coming from around the regions. And of course, digital capability, digital confidence is a key part of that as well. So we have an expert panel with us today. They will be obviously adding to the conversation, and they're going to be very ably led through that discussion by my friend and colleague, Heidi Cooper. But before we go to Heidi and to the panel, I also want to open proceedings today by taking a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that we are on. In my case today, I'm in Melbourne, and the traditional owners here are the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Bunurong people, part of the Eastern Kulin Nation. So we acknowledge their ongoing connection with land, with community, with culture in this part of Australia. And of course, we extend that same recognition around the country, wherever you may be today. Without further ado, can I please hand over to Heidi Cooper, who's going to lead us through the discussion. Over to you, Heidi.
Thanks so much, Andrew. And hi, everyone. As Andrew said, my name is Heidi Cooper. I'm the CEO of Business Chamber Queensland. Thank you so much for joining us today. The Future Makers series is such an important series that ACCI and the chambers across all of Australia are working on to ensure that business owners, and particularly female business owners, have the information and the skills they need in what is a rapidly changing world to be able to start, operate and run your own business. And this topic is one of those highly sought after, but also rapidly changing areas. As soon as we talk about digital or AI, it's the topic that consumes so many business owners' thoughts, concerns, worries, but also opportunity as well. We're really fortunate today to have an expert panel who is going to look at not only the issue and the topic around digital connectivity, digital confidence, AI, digitization, all of those questions that we have, but also start to look at what does this mean on a practical level. I find there's lots of people talking about it, but there aren't necessarily people who are supporting businesses to understand what it means on a practical level and be able to implement this in a safe, confident, effective way to grow your business. And that's what today is going to be all about. But before we get started, there are live captions that can be used. So if you would like to be utilising live captions, please click the CC or show captions on the Zoom screen. For those of you who have joined our other series, you'll know that we are going to have a Q&A at the end of this session. So I'll be leaving time for that. Make sure you think about any questions that you would like to raise. You can raise your question in the chat area, and we will use that as a mechanism for questions to be raised for the panel. Another really important thing for me to note up front is that today's session is for general information only. It's an opportunity to share ideas, insights, and experiences, but we need to be really mindful that everyone's business is different, and this is not specific advice for your business. If there is anything that you need particular professional advice on, it's important that you seek that separately outside of this webinar. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the panelists for today's session, and I have to say I'm really excited about it. I mentioned up front that I find that there are a lot of people talking about digitization, about AI, about the opportunity and also about the risk, but very few people are actually anchoring that conversation to what does it mean for business and business owners, and particularly small business owners, because as we know, as a small business owner, you're trying to do everything. So how is it that you now throw this onto the mix? Our expert panel is going to cover off so many areas, including digital confidence, but a lot of work as well around your online presence. So those practical suggestions around how do you think about your website? Do you need to be thinking about an online shop? online advertising, social media. How do you do this in an effective way, but also in a safe way as well? We've got business coaches and we've also got marketing specialists online today. And we also have those who've got really deep and practical experience in working with businesses on this topic throughout all of Australia, including in our regional areas. So joining us today, firstly is Sara Pantaleo, who's the Director of Afari SP Business Coaching and Mentoring. Now, Sara brings extensive experience supporting small businesses specifically to build confidence online and strengthen their digital presence and use digital tools in a practical and achievable way. Welcome, Sara, and thank you so much for your time today.
Good morning, Heidi. Thank you very much for having me.
We're also joined by Desiree Buller. Now, Desiree is the founder and digital strategist of Naked Digital. Now, Naked Digital works with businesses to build visibility, strengthen their digital presence, and connect more effectively with their audience through intentional digital strategies. Welcome, Desiree.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
And finally, and in no way least importantly, because one of my favourite people are part of the Chamber Network, is Paula Martin. Now, Paula is the Executive Director of Regions and the Visitor Economy for Business New South Wales. Paula is a respected leader in regional economic development, supporting small businesses through connection, strategy, and community-led growth. And I have to say, every conversation I always have with Paula is so deeply connected with business. She's passionate about growing our regions, and we're very grateful to have you here. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you, Heidi. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me as well.
So let's get started. And I think the first place that I'd really like to start is around what does this whole digital piece mean and why is it important for us to be talking about it? So I'm actually going to start with you, first of all, Sara. We know that this digital piece is important and everyone's talking about AI. Everyone's saying that you can be automating your business. Why is it that it is actually a critical topic for business owners at this point in time?
So really, no, thank you for that, Heidi. Look, the digital conference piece in practice as a business owner is really that confusion of why you're using a tool, what tool should I use, right? And like at the end of the day, there's a lot of noise out there, but from a day-to-day perspective, it's really, really important for you to have a very clear brand story and be able to have visibility around it. But what it might look like, it might just be update your website without panicking, being able to do that, right? Because, sometimes you might not have, or if you need to outsource it or whatever it means. I had a customer who didn't have a website and had not set up their business page on Google. So it might just be having that presence, right? And being out there, especially for regional areas as well, so people can find you locally. So it's really, really important to be there from a visibility point of view.
That's so practical for business owners to understand that. And thank you, to remind us about those different elements of the business where you can be getting that digital presence. What I might do is I might take it up a level. And Paula, if you're willing to share with us, you look at the economy as a whole. Obviously, you've got a regional focus, but I know that the work that you do, but also the work of Business New South Wales and other chambers such as Business Chamber Queensland, we're really interested in where's this overall uplift, not only for the business, but also for the economy and the business community as a whole.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. And just to build on what Sara was saying, the importance of digital enablement and digital adoption really for Australia and particular regional areas, it's all about productivity. Mm-hmm. We do have a productivity problem in Australia. We've got a small population. We've got scarcity of resources, in particular in the regional areas. And I'll go through some of the challenges with regional a little bit later on. But productivity has to be the predominant driver for digital adoption. And it's really important to understand as a nation, and particularly for businesses, where you sit in the digital maturity index. So Deloitte's published a really great piece of research a few years ago where they identified 3 levels of digital maturity: basic, intermediate, and advanced. And they took it one step further to understand the economic impact of what would happen if you moved from introductory to medium and medium or intermediate to advanced. And they found that businesses that actually shifted from one level to another of maturity, digital maturity, enjoyed over 20% of a revenue uptake. And we all know that when you increase revenue, you invest back into your business, you start to hire extra roles, you start to have the ability to reach those customers at a more broader level. The benefits are not just revenue and economic for yourself, but they're also benefits for the region and the community in which you service. So I think that's a huge outcome for businesses and communities in terms of being able to accelerate your digital maturity. And the other thing about the impact of being digitally enabled is that it's an enterprise building capability. It isn't just about implementing a tech system. It's a mindset. It's a business model. And the importance of that can't be underrated as we see the technology sphere, which I'm sure Desiree and Sarah is going to talk about it in more detail. As we see the acceleration of technology into agentic AI and other, to not be participating and adopting digital technology now will simply leave you out in the cold. We have no choice but to participate in this area, to be productive, to take advantage of the opportunities to grow your business.
Paula, I could not agree more with you, and thank you for articulating that in such a clear way for business owners. We see this all the time through the whole Chamber network, that this digitisation, AI, the opportunity to automate, but the utilising digitisation is absolutely critical for all businesses. Now, it can happen in a whole different ways, and Desiree, I'm going to ask you a little bit about that next. But the productivity piece is enormous, and we hear from businesses every day that they're concerned about the productivity in their business. And one of the ways to deal with that is to look at how it is that you can be implementing, digital capability in various different ways. And I think, Paula, every business would like the opportunity to have a 20% uplift in their productivity and revenue. So let's try and find out a little bit more about that. So Desiree, can you talk a little bit now about where are the different ways that you have seen businesses implementing digital tools, digital capability? There may be different forms. I mean, we've already started to use words like AI, agents, automation of processes, through marketing, through content development. I know you're doing a lot of work with small businesses. Can you take us through some really practical examples of what that looks like?
Yeah, I work with a lot of small businesses, both in the service-based as well as e-commerce space, and a lot of them are on Shopify. So for example, Shopify as a platform has its own sidekick and agent, and a lot of it you can chat with it essentially and either resolve a lot of issues that you might be facing at the time. A lot of apps offer chat support as well. So instead of relying on a developer, you're actually chatting with the app support, and their AI agents are responding to your questions or concerns straight away instead of having to wait 24 to 48 hours for a fix on your website, because e-commerce moves so fast, you can't afford to have a broken website. So it's being comfortable with first relying on the chat support as your first point of fix or defense, I guess, in a way. But a lot of people still want to pick up the phone and call someone, and a lot of us in the web industry are just not as available as what you can resolve in a chat support at the time. So being okay with that as your first step is probably important for a lot of tech support online, because a lot of the software and app developers are moving towards that kind of AI support. And sometimes it can be frustrating, but it's just maybe prompting the right questions, knowing how to ask and being very direct instead of being very broad and expecting that AI to know. And it's going to give you 10 suggestions instead of the direct one you were hoping for. So it's a bit of a practice and learning skill, I think.
Desiree, that's a really important piece. I hear that from businesses all the time that the prompting is actually one of the hardest things to be doing. You've given some really good examples there. Can you talk through a little bit more about advice that you'd be giving business owners who are potentially starting out, not only about the tech support piece, which is that chat side that you were talking about, but also potentially prompting whatever their chosen AI tool is. And can you give some examples of where it's worked well and maybe where it hasn't worked as well?
I think prompting is a skill on its own, and I myself use it, and I've learned that, okay, I'm getting very generic responses. I'm going to be very specific. Sometimes I actually ask the AI, ask me the question. Oh, well, first I will start with act as, for example, I am looking for feng shui, because I literally just did this yesterday. So I'm asking AI, I'm asking ChatGPT, and I say, act as a feng shui expert of 20 years. This is my situation. Ask me any questions that will help you to formulate your advice for me. And then it might say, okay, tell me, how you're feeling, what your issues are, what your layout of your house is. Nothing too, privacy encroaching, but enough for it to give me what I was hoping for, which is quite direct and specific feng shui advice at the time. So it's just getting it to ask you the right questions, but also taking one step back and making sure you go through the settings of the AI tool you're using and not make it generic. So if you're not going to customize it a little bit by just giving it a bit of information in the back end or changing a bit of the settings, then you're going to get the generic response, which a lot of people are getting at the same time if they ask the same questions. So customize it to yourself. Tell it what kind of words you prefer or don't prefer, and it will start to learn and sound like you, or learn how you are expecting the answers.
Sorry, you look like you're wanting to jump in.
Is it okay if I add something just from your question in relation to the tools that they choose and where they start? I think, sometimes small businesses jump in because it's the latest fancy and what have you. But I say start back at your business. No one knows your business like you know your business. You've created an idea or you've created a system. So really understand where the outcome is for the customer for you. And going back to what Paul is saying from a productivity point of view, do you have the right manual processes that then you can think about what technology can solve some of these manual processes rather than get the shiny tool? I think that's really, really important because really, I used to be in IT in the 80s in mainframe systems. I know most of you probably think, very archaic. However, the design and the output is important, rubbish in, rubbish out. Because really we're talking about AI, generative AI at the moment, but technology in relation to automation, the Internet of Things, and which is when you've got a piece of equipment that's connected to the internet, you might be able to save insurance money if you connect it to the manufacturer because they can see your maintenance cycles, right? We used to have an oven that did that, right? So what I'm saying to you is have a look at your business. What are your business needs? What do you need to practically do yourself? What do you need to perhaps automate or, using e-commerce or using AI? But start from you, right? And then think about the tools and then find the right tools.
It's so important because I think, as business owners, we all know that it's so important to understand your business and come from your business first, and what is applicable to somebody else's business may not be right for you. So that's really good advice. And Desiree, really interested in your kind of coaching around how to think about the prompting. A lot of businesses tell us that they find that the hardest thing. And I haven't heard before the bit about ask AI what questions they need to know to be able to answer. I think that's a really helpful tip. The other tip that I was given is, and look, and for me, this is not a natural space. I'm a conservative lawyer by background, and I'm definitely not sitting anywhere near the age of my kids who seem to jump into some of this stuff. I was given the advice to talk like I would brief a graduate or a person in my team. And when you shift your mind to that, it's not just putting in a single line question that you're expecting an answer to, and then you're disappointed with the product you get. It's exactly the same as if you're working with a member in your team or a graduate. If you were briefing them on something, you would take the time, you would provide the context, you'd help them to understand, you'd come back and say, okay, well, that's not quite what I was looking for. This is the piece that I need. And when I shifted my mind around that, I found prompting so much easier, because I wasn't trying to work out the ultimate question. What I was trying to do is actually work with effectively, another person or another contributor to my team to help me do the work that I'm doing. So I think that piece is really important about how we practically use it. Paula, I want to move to you now and the regions, because one of the things we know is that the digitisation of work and businesses is really allowing businesses to be based anywhere. And there's so much opportunity that comes with that. But it also means that we're seeing businesses that are able to take up opportunities both domestically and internationally as well, because of the way that they've been able to connect or utilise systems in different ways. You obviously spend so much time in regional Queensland. Can you talk through what you're seeing in that area?
Oh, sure, yeah. I might start with it's a bit of a pros and cons. So there are really great opportunities that digital enablement has brought to startup businesses, existing businesses, and established businesses in regions. But there are also challenges that we just need to be mindful of, but we can offset those with some unique characteristics that we see across regions. So I might just start with that regional communities, unlike metropolitan cities, they've got challenges in accessing resources, labour, infrastructure, and infrastructure that's related to connectivity. So unfortunately, connectivity is not consistent all throughout regional New South Wales. So that sometimes presents a challenge. And we've also got transport linkages. So if you're in a distribution type of organisation, we've got some challenges around that. And they do present higher barriers to success. And what that means for business sometimes is that it means fewer customers, fewer specialist services, fewer skill sets. So that challenges businesses' ability to scale. But what technology, if you have access to technology and connectivity, what it can bring to you, though, is that increased confidence around reinvesting back into your business, because you now have got this entire new world opened up to you that will help you to scale through different ways to assess how you can be more efficient in your business, to assess how you can communicate and build loyalty with your customers, to create that real deep connection with your customers that only technology can enable you to do. Because of your distance, you can't see your customer personally every time. And we talked about the use of chats as part of that process, and AI agents as part of that process. So I think one of the things that business owners that we're seeing really rise to the top for those organisations that are technology enabled is that they are able to create opportunities that wouldn't happen in isolation. Because when you're in a region, you know your networks, you know who to trust, you know who your partners are. What might start off as a small and separate opportunity for yourself can actually grow through collaboration and through understanding your network into a bigger partnership, access to bigger supply chain links, access to bigger referrals and joint product opportunities or procurement opportunities. And that's something that we're seeing that technology is enabling, where the strengths of one business can offset, potentially the growth challenges of another, but likewise in reverse. But by working together as one, that is something that in a region we actually see accelerate much faster than potentially in a metropolitan region. So therefore that allows industry to grow faster in regions, but also allows regions to be able to be investable, because that's something we need to think about when businesses collaborate together, because they've got the underpinning systems that technology can enable them to do. It actually starts to then display itself in a regional way and makes that region and that industry and even those businesses far more investable, because they're building their brand together and they're opening opportunities together. And that's not something that we see in metropolitan cities as much as we do in regional cities.
That's an excellent example of the way that businesses can be working together to achieve different outcomes. And Desiree, it actually makes me think of a conversation we were having earlier about your point that you don't have to be everything. Like digitization doesn't mean you have to be every part of the business. Can you talk through that a little bit? And how is it that business owners should be thinking through what are the areas that they should be focusing on and specializing, as opposed to other areas that they could either be partnering with, as Paul is talking about, or outsourcing?
I think those listening in might start getting a bit worried, going, "Oh my gosh, I'm so far behind, or I'm left behind. Where do I start?" And this is why you're here, because I and the others here want to give you that confidence to be able to do things online, but also I want to give you the permission to know that it's impossible for one person, especially a small business owner, especially a woman in business who is most likely juggling lots of other things at the same time. You can't do it all. I just flat out can't do it all. It's impossible. So it's being very intentional and also purposeful with your time and your energy, knowing what you can do and what you can do well, and then being able to either pass that on to a team member and oversee that, making sure you review anything that goes before it goes live, or hiring someone, whether that's a VA or someone, a part-timer mum who has school kids and can only work 2 or 3 days a week, school hours, whatever you can afford at the time. But it's investing in that so that that frees you up to be doing what you want to be doing, which is the reason you started your business, most probably. And then managing, but not micromanaging. There's a fine line here, because you do want them to take the workload off you, but you still need to oversee it until you get the confidence that they understand what your business goals are and how your tone of voice is, which is what Sarah said, understanding your business, your messaging, your branding, your tone of voice. Because when you have that in a document, you can hand it over to someone, and then an experienced person will be able to pick that up and sound like you and look like you, or the business. Sometimes you are separate from the business. So what your brand is, it's being okay with hiring or outsourcing it to someone. Processes are really important though. So like I said, you need to review everything. Sometimes you can give them the ideas. So they might have a spreadsheet for you to put in your ideas to create the content. And then they'll go off and flesh it out. They'll go off and find or create the images for you, because that's so time consuming. We can fall down a rabbit hole in Canva, for example, creating graphics, and you can't make a decision. Let someone else take that off you, and you can oversee it for sure. You don't have to hand it over 100%. So things like that, it's being very intentional and also preserving your time and your energy, and knowing that you can't do everything, especially doing it well. Because if you are spreading yourself thin, running the business, bringing in leads, or manufacturing your products, running your shop or your store, and then you have to do your marketing. The marketing is going to fall down the wayside for sure. That's the first thing that people drop, because they can't do it. They can't do it all. The difference between being everywhere at the same time, we can see, especially people who are sort of doing their background research to get in touch with you. If they see the same content rehash and very generic, it doesn't speak to them. It's just saying Happy Mother's Day, and it's across Facebook, Instagram, maybe LinkedIn. Boring, moving on, not even going to click to expand to read the caption. If you are, I'll use myself as an example, because I am you. I'm in Newcastle. I am running a small business online, completely remote, and trying to do it all, and get very sick because of it. So I have to try and outsource certain things which I prefer to be in control of, but I know it's impossible. So I have someone managing my social media. She creates the spreadsheet. I put in my ideas. She fleshes it out. And she creates the graphics, because I know I get stuck on decision making in there. But we have recently redesigned, and our messaging is about realignment and growth. So I want to attract more of those who are ready to reinvest, ready to rebrand or redesign their website. Yes, I can help small businesses starting out, first timers, but the magic is where they've already been doing it for a few years. They're ready to hand it over to someone else. All of our messaging across all channels is saying that it's aligned for growth. I hope you can check and pull me up on it if it isn't. But as of last month, and trickling in from previous months, because it took me a year to finish my own website, because again, decisions are not my thing. But it is really just really saying the same thing and speaking to the person that I want. I want more of people ready to redesign your website, realign, and hire someone to do that for them.
A definite pitfall that businesses can fall into. So thank you very much for going through that, Desiree. Sarah, you obviously deal with a lot of businesses. I wanted to sort of spring off that pitfall piece and probably ask you two things. One is, what else do you see the business owners may, inadvertently fall into? But secondly, the risk piece, we come across it all the time, and businesses must be thinking about this. I mean, Desiree touched on the fact that you've got to be careful about how much information you put in. How do you protect your IP? What are the governance frameworks that are needed?
Yeah, so it's a two-prong approach. Firstly, Desiree's really beautifully articulated how well you need to have your external presence. But being digitally capable is not just about the front of the shop, right? Even if you're online. It is also about, because I see businesses, sometimes their social media is perfect because they're very creative and they're wonderful, but then their back office doesn't support it. So then operationally, their capability doesn't match the look. So one caution that I'll give is in relation to being ready digitally and capable means also in the back office. Do you know what you need to automate? Do you know what you need to outsource? Do you know what you have to handle yourself? At what point do you pick up the phone? So I highly recommend what I've seen in my experience is to actually map out your flows, operational flows, lead generation flows, marketing flows, and measure if it's working, and ensure that you're able to be adaptable to change it and see, what isn't working, move on. But some of the pitfalls we all know in relation to data privacy and so forth, as you touched upon, Heidi, that is definitely one of the risks small businesses face when they're out there, right? Is really having to understand how you're giving out data. Do you have a data map? Do you know what data you keep, for how long you keep it, why you keep it? Do you know the laws around if you get a cyber incident? Are you aware? You need to be aware of that, right? But aside from all that is in relation to ensuring that your flows are right, because if they're not right manually, guess what? AI is brilliant. Technology is brilliant, automation is brilliant, but it will automate and amplify bad processes. So really, and that's why the measuring is really important, because then you'll be able to pick it up, right? So I actually think behind the scenes is really important, right? And then at the same time, touching upon some of the things that you were saying, Desiree, is you're actually able to create a style guide that actually maps out how you present yourself, the language that you use. And guess what? AI enables you to upload your DNA. So I actually highly recommend that whatever you're using, I use Claude. I don't particularly like ChatGPT personally. I'm a Claude advocate, and I have uploaded my DNA in there. I'm not afraid. It's out in the ether anyway. I'm not putting client data in there. But what I'm saying is I'm a cold woman. I'm a migrant from Italy. And funny enough, I just want to share a really small story. I said to Claude, "You're now assistente di Sara," in Italian, and it said certo. It responded in Italian. So they're very adaptive, right? So if you upload your DNA, your language, what you want to stand for, that means these are my ground rules around here, and your team get it, and everybody will be consistent. But the old-fashioned style guide in relation to just your imagery, the image that you use, the actual way you present yourself on social media, do not throw that out the window. Have that. have that and your story and all of that so that technology knows. But aside from AI, the old-fashioned CRM. So do you know where you keep your data? By having a CRM that's encrypted, right? A client relationship manager system that holds all your customer data in one central point of truth, right? Is really also important. So the biggest pitfall is falling into the trap that you have to have every piece of technology. So assess your business. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's really important. Understand your business, understand what you want to look like externally, ensure that you're not chaotic internally and you're able to deliver what you promise to your client, and then use what you need to use and you will be fine.
Heidi, can I just add to that for a
Please,
sec?
yeah.
Just in terms of the pitfalls we're seeing as well, I agree with everything Sarah said, and in fact, I'd amplify it just from a slightly different perspective, and that is that you've gone into business for a reason. You're trying to solve a problem, or you've got this fantastic idea, probably because you're trying to solve a problem, right? So what we see with business owners is this is no different to starting a business using normal strategy. We are a digital economy. We've got to stop this narrative that digital enablement is something new. We are a digital economy, whether we like it or not. So we are in this age. It's the level of sophistication that you can implement, afford, or have the resources to do that is the difference, right? So it really goes back to what is the problem that you are trying to solve, and then what is customer or the user experience that you are trying to reach or satisfy, or they are in turn dictating to you how they want to interact with you. And I like Sarah's front end, back end, because I had almost the same terminology. I look at a business from what the customer sees and what the customer doesn't see. So front end, back end. And if you were like to stand in your house or in your office and post like a white sheets all the way across the walls and literally map out the entire user experience all the way from what the customer sees at the beginning to the customer at the back, you will start to see the areas that you can automate, and then you can go and search for the right technology that suits you, because there'll be a whole range of different technologies. But it's understanding at which point your customer is engaging with you and what you want your customer to receive and to feel, so that you can build that loyalty with the customer back, and technology can help you with this. And I'll give you an example. Introducing an AI assistant without a follow-up mechanism from your business erodes trust. So there's one break. So you've introduced a digital tool, but you haven't backed it up with some customer follow-up. That will erode trust in your brand. Automating your shipping system, which they'll never see, but automating your shipping system without a follow-up communication to your customer, asking them what they think of the product or an ability to post a review, erodes your leadership position in your sector. Or posting often is great for you as a business owner, but without a consistent brand and tone that Sarah and Desiree were talking about, will confuse your customer and slow that loyalty journey. So we're actually talking about go back to strategy 101. What is it that you went into business for? How do you want your users to engage with you and create that loyalty? Because you want repeat customer. Map it all out, and then naturally the digital tools will fall from that, and then you can make that decision as to whether you do it yourself or whether you want to outsource it to another organisation. So hopefully that's a useful tip for our viewers out there today.
Incredibly helpful and so practical about what we need to be doing and the potential pitfalls. I think your point, Paula, about making sure that you don't jump into technology until you understand what it is that you're looking for is really, really important. One piece that we just haven't touched on that I do want to make sure that we do cover off is, there is obviously a risk piece in using digitisation and AI. And, Sarah, I take your point about the fact that, a lot of your stuff's probably out there in the ether anyway, but there's a lot of stuff that isn't. And businesses do need to think about that quite carefully. So depending on where you're at in your digitisation or AI journey, it's important to realise that when you do make a decision around whatever tool it is you are going to use, There are open versions, but there are also enterprise versions as well. And so enterprise versions mean that it's controlled within your organisation, and then that reduces risks of IP leak or data issues as well. Also, really important to be talking to your staff about it. It doesn't matter how big your team is. I can guarantee they're using it in some way. And what we need to be doing is providing the appropriate mechanisms for those people within our businesses to be using it in a safe way, in an effective way, but it also just means that you don't end up with shadow IP leak through AI. It's a really big issue that is growing. People aren't even aware of what they're putting into AI, and it can end up creating issues for businesses, and you may not even know about it. You may just be giving information to your competitors that you haven't even known that you've been doing that. So spending a little bit of time to think through that governance process, having a conversation with your team members, talking to them about what's acceptable within your business, what isn't. And then when it comes to actually managing your team around this, in many ways, this is just a new version of what we've all done many times when we manage staff. It is about taking the time and the effort. It is about training. It's also about saying that it's not okay to just provide me with a regurgitation of what it is that you get out of AI or a digitized process. I often say to my team, it might improve the efficiency, but it doesn't do all the critical thinking. You need to be doing the critical thinking. So it's exactly the same way as you would manage any other staff member. I'm mindful of time, and I want to make sure that we have an opportunity for questions. So SK, would you like to start having a look at what some of the questions are that have come through?
Yes. Hi, can you hear me? See me?
Yes.
Perfect. I don't know why camera is not working, but anyway, the first question is my husband and I own a contracting business, and I have this idea about using video of the boys laying slabs, etc., as ASMR as part of our marketing strategy. But I'm wondering what my obligations are to our employees and contractors in order of filming them on the job. Do I have to get waivers or anything? And if so, each video or just a general waiver? Or if they're working for me, am I okay to film as part of their job?
Just because at La Phuket, I got myself in a bit of strife with this. I just want to cover this off. And you absolutely need to sign something to get approval for someone to do that at work if you're going to use it in a certain way, even to the point of ensuring that it covers how you're going to use it and that they're okay with it. Absolutely do not film children without parent consent. And I wouldn't actually film children, but we did film children, so we did get parent consent at La Phuket because we were a family business, and we were franchised Australia-wide, but definitely get consent, right? With training videos as well, if you're going to use your staff, you need consent. I cannot iterate this enough from a governance point of view. It is their image, it is not yours.
Absolutely.
And get legal advice as well. Sorry.
I was just about to say, get some support around that. But
Yeah.
I think the premise is absolutely right. Even with this webinar, you would have seen that it said that it's being recorded, and that there's permission around that. So it's really important that you get consents right. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's just that people need to be aware of what it is that you're doing and how it's going to be used.
Can I also add to just with that one, Heidi, that just to consider whether using your employees is the right strategy for your advertising campaign or your training campaign. Employees move on. And you don't want to invest in all of that videography and the storytelling only for your employee to say, well, I don't work for you anymore, so I want you to take me off. So I think that's just something to consider about in terms of the use of talent in any videography, just to maybe bounce the ball forward a little bit. If it's your own business and you'll be around for a long time, sure. But when you're looking at using staff, I would just bounce the ball a little bit forward and maybe consider the impact if those employees do leave.
Great point. Thank you, Paul. That's a very important one.
That's a good one.
And it goes to the longevity of your business as well. SK, next question.
What do I need to be thinking about in terms of IP when it comes to AI?
Okay, so I think we touched on that a little bit in the last response, but it's absolutely critical that you look at this. I mean, I think we've already covered off that Even just thinking about the difference between OpenAI compared to enterprise AI, what it is that you're letting either yourself or your team members put into AI, how much do you want to make it specific to you, as what Sarah was talking about, and as compared to that which is either competitive or it's related to one of your customers. It's a really important process to go through, because the reality is that if you do put information into OpenAI, it does become accessible, and you want to be very cautious that you're not inadvertently having an impact on your AI that way. So work out what it is that you're actually talking about. You can use Sarah's test, which is if it's already out there, then there's no concern about it at all. But if it is, and if it's something that you wouldn't be prepared to give to another person, to the competitor, to your newspaper, then it's probably something you don't want to be putting into an OpenAI system. But it's very important that you do go through that.
Hardy, can I add, for small businesses that might not have the funds to do enterprise, both ChatGPT and Claude, for instance, just those examples, there's plenty more, is you can create a co-work space as long as you've got the paid version that only uses your ecosystem. It doesn't have to be a fully enterprise. I have co-work and I ask my clients if they're okay with me putting some of their work to do some analysis. Once I get that consent, it just stays it only uses my OneDrive. It does not go out in the ether, but it uses its power to be able to analyze data. So you can't do it for small businesses, but just get some advice, please.
I was just going to jump in and say, if you are using the standard AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude, think of it as it's a cannibalism. Whatever you feed it is going to regurgitate to anyone else probably searching along the same line, because that's its hub, that's its resource, as well as the gigantic internet resource and search engines. But also what you feed it is remembering, unless you tell it not to remember. So again, always review the settings of the programs that you're using, whether you want it to remember things or just start fresh and clear that memory. I don't know if it's 100% guaranteed they will clear it, but there's definitely something in the settings for that.
And again, it's no different to how you would protect your business in the old-fashioned way. We're protective of our IP. It's what makes us competitive. So treat the use of digital tools the same way. There are some resources, government resources available to help you develop governance and guardrails. You can go to IP Australia. You can go to the AI Centre of Excellence. It's a federal centre of excellence that's got some governance in it to help businesses to develop some guardrails around the use of IP, but that is absolutely an area that you need to research and you need to have in place early, so you don't get bitten later on inadvertently without even realising.
Next question, SK.
Thinking about what Desiree said about asking AI to act as an expert and getting it to ask questions to make sure you get the prompt right, can I ask AI to teach me how to use AI better? I'd love to learn how to use agents, but I don't know where to start and not sure if the answers I would get from AI will actually be helpful.
This is a rabbit hole alert, because you're opening up a whole new opportunity. And I would advise you, from my experience as well, is to start with the purpose first. If you have a current situation where you feel like maybe you have writer's block, or you need to write a blog, or you need to change or assess your website content, start with that first, and then there will probably have some to-do lists coming up from that. If you're going to ask it, what am I going to do? It's going to really say everything. But then you can also say, well, can you narrow down the top 3 most impactful changes that I can make? Again, this comes down to the prompting, but I will caution that maybe don't go in very open, because you will feel that overwhelm straight away and maybe shut it down and never want to touch your computer again. Maybe start with some actual problems that you have, or know that you need to prompt it, continue prompting it to say, narrow it down for me, and what's going to make the most change, impactful change. That's the other way I would start.
There's a plethora of advice around prompting. Micro-credentials now are being developed to help you to learn how to do prompting skills. But also the large providers, the Microsoft, the Googles of the world, they've all got training sessions on prompting. Honestly, just search the web, go to TAFE. There are so many different places that you can learn how to prompt. Prompting is simply asking questions. So as a business owner, you're constantly asking questions. What's my cash flow? Why didn't that customer come back to me? It's just simply asking questions, but it's doing it in a way that the technology understands what you're trying to achieve. So I would get trained up on that as early as possible and keep reading up about it, because prompting is changing organically anyway every year.
Absolutely. And I think that's really great advice from both Desiree and Paula. And I'd go back to the point that I raised before, which is what's really, really valuable is thinking about, it's not like you're doing just a simple Google search. This is not, you're not trying to find one question. This is actually about engaging in effectively in a conversation about what it is that you were trying to achieve. The same as you wouldn't go to a staff member and say, so tell me what I need to know about AI, and expect to get the right answer from that, right? If you went to a staff member and said, hey, I think we need to be adopting this into our business. These are the areas that I think it could work. These are the areas that I'm a little bit concerned about. Can you have a think about what my competitors are doing? What about my industry? And you ask all of those questions, and you're going to get something that's relevant. But to Desiree's point, if you just ask AI to solve a very generic open question, not only are you going to be disappointed, but you're going to be totally overwhelmed as well. You need to spend a little bit of time. Another tip that I was given recently as well around the prompting, and I think your point, Paula, that it's constantly changing, is, and this goes a little bit to what Desiree was saying about saying to AI, well, what are the questions I should be, you need from me to be able to provide me with this answer? Someone said to me recently, if you say to AI, this is how I'm thinking about prompting you, is this the best way to prompt you to get the best answer for me? And then AI will actually rewrite the prompt that they need to be able to, it feels very cyclical, but apparently this is a way to make it work more effectively. SK, another question.
Sure. This one says, I know that I need to get more techie. I know it will help me be more productive and efficient, but where am I supposed to find the time to set all these new things up?
Sarah's got something interesting there.
Look, I want to go back to, I call it the small business disease, right? And Desiree touched upon it. No one can do it as well as I can, so I'll do it myself. And you honestly, because you are an entrepreneur or you are a creative, you think no one can do it like this, right? So it's really, I'm going to give you some basics. I'm not going to give you a technical answer, right? It's really basic. And that is, have a strategy. And, Paula, you touched upon it, right? And you understood I was talking about the flows. I love the way you put it with the sticky notes, right? Just keep it simple, right? The KISS system, right? And that is, have a strategy, what you're trying to achieve in your business for your client. Then from that strategy, understand your marketing strategy and what you're trying to achieve, and then understand, am I the right person to do this? And what are the resources that I have right now, not just in technology, but in people, to be able to achieve it? And then you'll know, is it a person that will be able to do it? Because you've done your flows, you've got your strategy, you're trying to achieve something, right? And then it's either a matter of, if you're the only person standing, say, will this help me grow my business, right? Because you're doing it yourself, I can assure you will not, right? But setting a budget in play and understanding, what's my return on investment if I bring in an employee? Do I outsource it? I work on my own. I'm a business coach and mentor, and I'm a director on boards, right? So my choice was I was going to have a virtual assistant to help me do the admin. But I then decided instead I invested in technology. And the investment that I did in technology has helped me achieve my goal for my business. That may not work for your business. In a restaurant, you need the chef. You still need the server to smile, right? However, you can use the technology. So personally, don't try and do everything yourself. Say, where do I focus in my business under this strategy? And where will I get the greater return to be productive, and let someone else do the job that might actually do it better than I, because sometimes you're not the right person to do it.
Heidi, can
Yeah.
I just give a bit of a
Yeah.
horrible cold cup of water on this
Yeah.
to support Sarah? In terms of I've got to be techie and I don't have the time, we've got no choice now. Because even if we don't want to do it because we want to be completely human-faced, there are things that are a requirement for us to demonstrate that we've got governance in place in relation to technology. If you want insurance, they want to see a cybersecurity plan. If you want to tender for a contract with local, medium, local, state, federal, or even a large company, they will want to see your cybersecurity guardrails and policies in place. So even if we didn't want to participate as deeply into the world of AI and technology, there are elements of the business world that are forcing us to do it anyway. So as a business owner, I think like marketing, like social media, like everything else that's essential, this is now an essential integrated part of your business model. And unfortunately, we've got no choice but to face it. Even if you don't want to introduce integrated, sophisticated systems, the least we need to demonstrate is how do we manage our customer data? How do we protect that data? And how do we protect the data of our employees as well? Because we need to show that we've got adequate guardrails in place so that our personal information as employees doesn't get out into the cybersphere.
Can I share
that's a really
something,
good. Sorry, I'm
Heidi?
just going to close that off because it's now like we're just starting to run out of time. But I think that's actually a really important point, Paula. And I think I think that question is probably the heart of the reason why we're doing this webinar, is because you're not alone in feeling that way. So many people feel completely overwhelmed by this. And what I would say is there is a balance here. Everything that Sarah has said is absolutely right about thinking about your business and looking at the strategy overall. But there is also an element around progress over perfection. And I think Paula's point is a really important one, that this is an economic transformation and it's not something that you can sit back and ignore. Please don't get yourself paralyzed around what's my strategy, what's my growth, what does this look like, what do I need to be doing. There are some really simple steps that you can start taking. And to Paula's point, this is happening. And that's the reason why the Chamber Network and ACCI are leading in this space, because we know that this is a really important thing that business owners and particularly small business owners need to be thinking about. So rather than feeling I'm not techie, that's a feeling that a lot of people have. It's about what can I do and what makes sense for my business. I would also say as well that you need to be thinking about all of these things, but please don't let it put you into a point of paralysis. You do need to move forward in this space. And I would really encourage progress over perfection. Think it carefully, think about risk. You're a business owner, you know how to do this. We know how to run businesses and we know how to think about the opportunity and the risk and balance this. This is just another economic transformation like what we've seen before. And then the third element I would add is say, give it a go. Like that's the most important thing. Choose an area and give it a go. And you might want to start off with something super small. You might even want to start off with something personal to start off with and just see what happens and see what you can explore. But it is important that you do start to think about how it is that digitization, whether that's AI, automation, enabling and embedding digitization into your organization, is something that's front of mind. And another piece of advice that I was given recently is that this is not something that you can outsource as a leader. You can absolutely outsource some of the work, outsource some of the tasks, and you shouldn't, to Sarah's point, and Desiree, you raised this point as well, try to do it all yourself, but you must lead as a business owner. And it means that we do need to lean into this. And that's the reason why this seminar is happening. I'm really conscious of time.
Can I share an AI checklist that they can download? And this will help them start. And at least it's sort of, let me see.
Sorry, you'll need to do it quickly because
no worries. Can you see it? Can you see that? Yep.
Not yet. No. There we go. Yes,
yeah.
Now I can.
So if you scan this will actually help you assess your business and yourself and see if you're ready and where to. It's a starting point for small businesses if you don't have the resources. But thank you, Heidi. I agree totally. Be there. because if you're not there, you're left behind. And Paula said it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you mind taking that one off if that's
I
okay,
will.
Sarah? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are all business owners. It's 11 o'clock, and something that we always promise is that this runs exactly to time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to those who are online. This has been recorded, so you can come back and have a look at it at any time. I will remind everyone, though, that this is general advice, so it is really important that you do get support from people who need it, people who can provide it to you, and those who do need support. There are lots of different places where you can be going. I would encourage you as your number one spot to go to your state Chamber of Commerce. Paula's with Business New South Wales. I'm obviously with Business Chamber Queensland. There's one in every state and territory. We are supporting businesses just like yours every day and working with you not only on this, but in other areas as well, because ultimately our number one goal is to ensure that businesses thrive. Thank you to each of our panelists. You've been exceptional and really appreciate you taking the time. This is one of many in the series of the Future Makers webinar program. You can have a look at what we've covered off before, but please ensure that you sign up to the next program as well. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.